What's up, everyone? It's Anna, also known as That Star Wars Girl, and today, you can tell by the title and the thumbnail of this video, I am actually going to be talking about Star Trek. Now, leaks came out about the new Star Trek 4 movie, and that the Star Trek 4 movie is canceled. Now, I take leaks with a grain of salt just because they're leaks. There's no way for me to verify this information. But if we look at the track record with the way that leaks have been coming out, you can start off with Game of Thrones. When I found, I didn't want to read the leaks at first, and then after episode 3 of Game of Thrones, I was like to Mahler and Jeremy, I'm like, all right, just tell it to me. And they told me the leaks, and I was like, there's no freaking way. There's no way that, who is going to end up on the Game of Thrones throne is going to... There's no way any of that's going to happen. It's too ridiculous. Everything happened. Everything happened. And the leaks had more information on how those things happened and did a better job. This one sentence did a better job explaining what happened than the show did. And the leaks made more sense than the show did. Then, when Star Wars, The Rise of Skywalker was coming out, the entire plot of the movie got leaked online. I did an hour-long live stream I did an hour-long live stream, and then I also did a video where I was talking about it, and I was reading these leaks, and I was laughing at it because I'm like, this is absolutely ridiculous. There's no way they would do that. And the ending, the big closer for their trilogy, and they're gonna do this. Anyone with a shred of common sense wouldn't do this. This is going to be a dumpster fire shit show. And then guess what? It was all true. All of it. All of the leaks. I had covered it. Other channels had covered it and had blown up from their coverage of it. And guess what? All the haters wanted to say shit about us. Oh, you're wrong. Those are just leaks. You're going to be wrong. The movie's not going to be anything like that. And then guess what? We were all right. And we were reading the leaks. We were just reading the information that was provided for us, that had been leaked online, on sites like Reddit, on sites like 4chan. And so, when I saw these leaks today, I thought about it, and I was like, do I want to do a video on this? Do I want to cover this story? But then I thought more about it, and it stuck with me, and I'm like, this is actually starting to make a lot of sense. And I started connecting the dots. And I'm like, all right. So in these leaks, Star Trek 4 is canceled. Noah Hawley that they had brought in. So Noah Hawley is a very famous writer and director and novelist. He's very fast at what he does. He can write 2 TV shows, Legion and Fargo simultaneously. And so, as far as he goes, he is actually a big Star Trek fan. And what do we know about Star Trek as far as, the Kurtzman Star Trek with Star Trek Discovery is they won't hire people that are Star Trek fans. If you even mention that you like Star Trek, they will not hire you because they do not want you to be sitting there correcting them, saying like, oh, that's not exactly how Kirk would do it. That doesn't really make sense, with Vulcans. They don't want that. They don't want people telling them that they're wrong. They just want to sit there in their own little bubble and spew out this stuff and then, advertise it as Star Trek. And when people present them, hey, that's not Star Trek. And I'm experiencing it right now with Picard. And you guys saw my last review. My review for episode 2 is coming out tomorrow. My blood it's boiling every single episode because I'm like, this isn't how it works. This isn't how the Force works. This isn't Star Trek. And it's frustrating me to my very core. So I investigated these leaks. And in these leaks, it says the draft was turned down by Noah Hawley, was deemed too Trekky by Paramount, and has been rejected. And then it goes on. Paramount officials were also reportedly enraged. It shared a lot of similarities to the Orville, which they see as inferior competitor that nonetheless is eating up their market share. A lot of people got caught up in this, and Hawley sought help from old school Star Trek fans at CBS and Paramount to put together a preliminary art and concepts to pitch. Off his own bat, which he got outright rejected, everyone got really pissed off. There could be a mass walkout. The script was not set in the Bad Robot timeline, but in the chronological 1996 to 2005 era. It featured mostly new cast. Hawley has walked since he feels the whole thing is a waste of time if he isn't allowed to direct the film he wants to make. There is no backup plan for a new film, and Tarantino's movie will not happen. So that is a huge, huge bomb to drop. When just 3 weeks ago, Hawley was doing an interview with Collider, and in his interview with Collider, they did this whole piece on him. They had this weird little episode where he's not there, but they advertised it like he was there, even though it was like an interview type episode. And in this, he talks about what his plans are for Star Trek, and then because Hawley is very open about how he's willing to take on projects that already have invested fan bases, and how he respects those fan bases, and he tries to use those characters and use that universe that they exist in, even if it's a real life story, and how he tries to give it his own spin while respecting what is already there. And for someone like me, I'm like, that sounds like a great person to be on your project, especially if they're trying to take something that already exists, characters that already exist, and do something new with them. And that's exactly what he says in his interview. So let's check out exactly what he said. When I looked at all of the franchises, I kept coming back to Star Trek as something that ultimately, at the end of the day, that is at its heart about being human, about diversity and exploration, and outsmarting your opponent as opposed to destroying your opponent through your physical might. It's William Shatner putting on his reading glasses and lowering the shields. That's Star Trek to me. He's clever, he's cleverer than the other guy, but it's also conceptual science fiction that was also so great in The Next Generation or even the original. Action in and of itself isn't that interesting to me unless it's story. I love The Raid. The guy is stuck in the building and has to go to fight his way out. It's all story. But just to have action for action's sake isn't that interesting. So I have my own take and my own things that I want to bring to do to it with it. Having done this 40-hour homage to Coen's and having done a Marvel series, I always approach this material understanding that people are really invested in these stories, and I treat the material with respect, but I'm going to tell my own story now. I always feel as a fan, if there's something that I love and somebody tells me new stories, I get excited. I'm excited there's going to be another Matrix movie. I don't need it to be the old Matrix movie. I'm excited to see the characters used in new ways or new characters or whatever it is. So right off the bat, just in that interview, it's like he's poking at JJ, he's poking at the studios, because what have they done with Star Trek? They've taken it, they've marketed to us like, hey, look, it's Star Trek, oh my gosh, look, Spock's back, Kirk's back, Uhura's back, we're gonna bring old Spock back, R.I.P. Leonard Nimoy, I love you. And we're going to bring the Romulans. We're going to bring everyone back. It's going to be this big powwow. And then it's like an empty shell compared to Star Trek. But they want to use it for the marketing because they saw that it was popular. They saw how popular it is. They saw how it resonated with people. And they want to capitalize on that. And they want to make money off of everyone's, emotional attachment to these characters, to this franchise. And so what he's saying, it makes a lot of sense. He's a fan of this, and we already know that CBS, they will not hire you if you say that you're a fan of this, because then that makes them restricted, because then they'll actually have someone in the room that's like, hey, no, that's not how it works. That doesn't make sense. And they don't want to work with those restrictions. So they won't hire anyone that knows anything about this. And it shows. So for him to say this 3 weeks ago in his Collider interview and specifically state, hey, I don't want to just write, if I'm writing Star Trek, I'm going to talk about actual Star Trek and how the entire point of it was to use this instead of this. And that's what Star Trek was. That was something that was special and unique about Star Trek, is that it was about diplomacy. It was the United Federation of Planets. It was to seek out new life and new civilizations, to boldly go where no one has gone before. And I understand his logic behind saying, I want to take something that I loved and I don't want to remake it. I want to use this and respect the source material and then tell my own stories with these characters, but I'm not going to bash on the past. And that I feel like is a huge red flag to these companies, because that's all they seem to care to do is let's just take this, let's bash on it, and if you have any type of criticism, then we're just going to try to, keyboard warrior you online. We're gonna go off on you on Twitter through these sock puppet accounts or through our paid sock puppet accounts, and we're just gonna call you all of these names under the rainbow. That doesn't make any sense. And so going back and seeing these leaks, I'm inclined to believe them, because seeing what he said in his interview, the very, 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 I mean, you can argue reading between the lines, but I mean, that honestly, that's just a straight up, jab at JJ, at them, because that's all JJ did. Let's take Star Trek, let's get a new cast, let's make it all shiny and new, let's add in all of these action sequences that don't make any sense, let's completely destroy these already established characters, let's destroy Khan, let's completely fuck up the Wrath of Khan. Let's fuck up Spock. Let's just continuously fuck up everything. But we're gonna have lens flares. We're gonna have special effects. We're gonna have the Beastie Boys. It'll be great. That's JJ Star Trek, and it doesn't make sense. So reading that and knowing what I know about this man, because I do my research on people. Noah is he's just a workaholic to the max. He pumps out scripts like nobody's business. Again, he's working on 2 shows simultaneously, and that takes a lot of work, along with writing novels on top of that. So this guy's not about wasting time. So when I saw those leaks, and then I went and I did my research and I watched this guy's interviews, and I'm like, oh yeah, like this makes sense. This is something that he would say. Him telling them, here's my proposal, but they want to put him in their own little box where it's like, you can't do anything that has to do with Star Trek. You can't actually make it Star Trek. You have to go within our own little box. And he's like, no, I'm not going to do that. That is a waste of my time. Knowing what I know about this man, and you're more than welcome to go do your research. Go watch all of the interviews of him here on YouTube. Go look at his, even his verbal, written interviews. You can go see this guy isn't about wasting time. He is all about the work. All about the work and telling good stories. He's not going to put his name on something like this. And it's so, I feel like I've heard this story before. It's the same thing with Star Wars. How many directors did Solo have? Because Kathleen Kennedy didn't approve of them because they weren't woke enough. How far did Solo get into filming? And Kathleen Kennedy's like, oh, I actually don't like this. I don't want it to be that way. Reshoots for Rogue One. Reshoots for Solo, reshoots for The Rise of Skywalker, reshoots, because these people don't actually want to make something that's decent. They don't want to tell a story. All they want is action. Just all of our audience just sit there and blindly consume product. So you take this leak with a grain of salt. I personally am inclined to believe it, and I honestly thought it was too good to be true about the Quentin Tarantino Trek. For those of you that are new to my channel, I am a huge diehard Quentin Tarantino fan, and I would love to see Quentin Tarantino do Star Trek and have his own little spin on it. I would absolutely love it. Sounded too good to be true, and Quentin Tarantino's not going to work within those kind of constraints. Any self-respecting person is not going to put their name on this. We just watched what happened with JJ with The Rise of Skywalker. Noah Hawley, he's not going to put his name on this. I believe these leaks are true. And as far as Star Trek 4 not being made and it being completely canceled, I believe this project is canceled. Star Trek 4 is probably going to be put on hold for a while. It's already been years since Star Trek Beyond came out. So it's going to be, I feel like it's going to be a pretty decent more chunk of time if if they do another Star Trek 4, which I feel like they will because they want the money, but it's getting people to work on the project, getting the actors and actresses to sign off on the project, and, of course, getting somebody to write and direct it. It's going to be a mission for them, especially when they limit what people are allowed to do creatively. So anyway, guys, let me know what you thought of this in the comments below. If you believe the leak or not, again, take it with a grain of salt. I'm personally inclined to believe it just because they're showing a pattern. Hollywood is showing a pattern. All of these leaks came out with Game of Thrones, with Star Wars, Star Trek. It continues to happen. It continues to be proven right. And honestly, it just feels like there's these executives in these very, high profile jobs, and it's a few of them that are making the decisions, and then all of the people that just go in, it's just 9 to 5. They just got to make a paycheck. They got to pay their bills. They got mouths to feed, and they go in. They probably don't agree with anything, but their job's on the line. And I feel like it's people like that are leaking this. Somebody that's just maybe they're not even in these positions where they're working directly with these people, but it's like somebody's receptionist could overhear a meeting conversation. Somebody that's working in this department could overhear this. Somebody that's like just doing a meeting and is like, oh, okay, they're just part of the meeting, and they don't, they're not one of those people, and then they're getting frustrated with this in their own work environment because they don't agree with it, and so they're leaking it online. I honestly think that's what's happening. I think, people that actually care about this stuff, that work at the company, that don't have that woke mindset, are putting this information out there as, their own way of rebelling from the inside. So thank you to those people that are doing that. If my theory is true, thank you. We appreciate you. And everyone, thanks for joining in this battle with the Fandom Menace to fight this woke weirdness in Hollywood, because it is getting ridiculous, and I am sick and tired of seeing the things that I care about and the franchises I love getting destroyed movie by movie, episode by episode. So anyways, guys, have a great rest of your day, and may the Force be with you, because we are really, really, really going to need it. Bye, everyone.